All right, good afternoon, everyone. I call to order this special meeting of council for Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. And we'll start with our land acknowledgement and looking to Dr. Cottle to let me know who. Oh, it's Mr. Shinbine. Okay. Mr. Shinbine.
Good afternoon. Well, I have provided land acknowledgements since being a resident of Canmore. This is my first land acknowledgement where I am surrounded by others who call Canmore home. In preparation for this land acknowledgement, I thought about what reconciliation means for my family. We were not born to this land. We acknowledge that our choice to live, work, and recreate in this valley is privileged, and that the territory's original inhabitants were forcefully displaced. Here, we are grateful to share formative land-based experiences with our children. We are grateful for our respective roles as caretakers for this community, its peoples, and the environment we all share. We are eternally grateful to those who inhabited and cared for these lands and its creatures far before our time. With that said, I want to acknowledge that the town of Canmore is located within Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta, the traditional territories and home of the Stoney Nakoda nations, Bearspaw, Goodstoney, Chiniki, the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, and the Tsuut'ina Nation, and the Region 3 Métis Nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning now to item A2, the agenda. There's just one addition, and that's under the public hearing. Number one, in the list of presentations there, we're adding a new one after 3, which is the applicant presentation. I don't think there's any other changes. So with that small amendment, I move that we approve the agenda for September 16th, 2025 special meeting of council as amended. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. All right, I'm going to change screens here. So now I call to order the public hearing for Bylaw 2025-27. The purpose of this bylaw is to amend the land use bylaw by adding further uses to the Three Sisters Gateway District. The public hearing will proceed as follows. After I provide this introduction, administration will provide a brief summary of the matter under consideration to set a context for the hearing. Next, the applicant will provide some comments to further contextualize the hearing. Council will have opportunity to ask questions of administration and the applicant after their respective presentations. Then I will invite members of the public to speak. There will be an opportunity for council to ask questions of clarification after each speaker presents. Once anyone present who wishes to speak has done so, the municipal clerk will provide the names of those who provided written submissions. Then council will again have opportunity to ask questions of administration before the public hearing is closed. And with that, let's move to the administrative presentation.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I finally have this mic placement down to a science. I'm here to present Bylaw 2025-27, which is the addition of uses to the Three Sisters Gateway Commercial District. For some context, the Three Sisters Gateway District only exists in the area shown on this map here. It's not present anywhere else in the town, so the proposed addition to uses would only apply in this area. We received an application to amend the land use bylaw in June of this year. The application seeks to add 3 permitted uses and 3 discretionary uses to the TSGD Three Sisters Gateway Commercial District. This is largely in response to leasing requests and to add compatible land uses to those that already exist in the district. This particular area falls within the Stewart Creek Area Structure Plan area, which was passed by Council September 21st, 2004. Here shows just a general chart of the proposed land uses and some comparable districts throughout the town that have similar districts. The 3 permitted uses that are being proposed are pet care facility, storage facility limited to only indoor, veterinary clinic, and then the proposed discretionary uses are care facility, kennel, and laboratory. A notice of the application was circulated to internal and external stakeholders and to subject property owners within 60 meters of everywhere that was in the Three Sisters Gateway District. We have to date not received any comments, questions, or concerns. And a sign was posted at the beginning of Cascade Drive right at the front of the Three Sisters Gateway District on August 11th. In general, we find that the proposed uses are consistent with the nature and the purpose of the district and the nature and purpose outlined in the area structure plan. All the uses are providing a commercial or residential function, which is consistent with other uses in that district. And we feel that there's really no conflict between the proposed uses and those that are already contemplated. It is therefore administration's recommendation to give second reading to Bylaw 2025-27 and third reading to Bylaw 2025-27. That's a lot of 20s. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Collette. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. I don't see any. Thank you. Now, Ms. Carpat, I understand you'll be presenting on behalf of the applicant. Welcome. Hello. Apparently, Siri also welcomes you to council.
Oh, I feel privileged. I'm also vertically challenged, so just please notice that I have not adjusted the microphone. So I'm amongst good company. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessica Carpat. I am the Director of Community Planning and Liaison for Three Sisters Mountain Village. We are talking about the Three Sisters Commercial Gateway District, TSGD, today, and the added uses. Next slide, please. As you have already been made aware, here is the gateway at Three Sisters District. It is located within the Stewart Creek Area Structure Plan, and it is a key residential, commercial, and mixed-use community within Three Sisters Mountain Village. Next slide. Oh, sure. Should I repeat what I just said, or? Okay. Consistent with what administration just said, the land use amendment aligns with the NRCB decision 9103, the Town of Canmore Municipal Development Plan, as well as the Stewart Creek Area Structure Plan adopted in 2004. There's going to be no change to the land use district boundary, increase in gross floor area, or intensity of commercial uses. So the amount of commercial use proposed, we're just proposing a change to the listed uses within the district. Next slide, please. The uses contemplated are commercial support service uses compatible with existing and future plans for the area. The storage and laboratory uses have similar operational hours to an office and allow for diversification of the Canmore economy. Kennel is being proposed as discretionary, as it would be a dual use, allowing the care facility or the pet care facility use, to host pets overnight. As necessary consideration for them to partner with local rescue and adoptions. Existing uses within the district already allow for pets, so there's no increased risk of noise disturbance. With that being said, we did do a little bit of engagement. Next slide, thank you. TSMVPL notified the confirmed tenants within the gateway at Three Sisters area. We have conducted some engagement with local homes, and that public notice sign has been posted on the property to let anybody know of the proposed changes. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. Respectfully request that council approve the land use redesignation.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Carpat. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Ms. Carpet. I wonder if you could just elaborate on the kennel use a little bit for me. That was a concern, and you've said that, you know, it's basically for overnight pet care, you know, that you would expect at almost any vet clinic. But if somebody came in and said, we want, you know, to host 20 dogs overnight, what would that look like? Could that look like anything?
So through the chair to Councillor Graham, if a kennel was proposed, it is a discretionary use. I would expect that administration would look at the location of that use within the commercial area and how that potential discretionary use could impact adjacent land use districts or adjacent developments. And that would be an analysis that would be undergone at the development permit or a change of use stage. The reason why Three Sisters is requesting that change of use is because the definitions in accordance with the land use bylaw as it is today are very specific, and we could not have one of our tenants have overnight pet care facilities or pet care without this being inserted into the land use bylaw. I would, we currently do not have plans for a kennel to be located within the Gateway Land Use District.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right then, we will, second here. We'll move to public submissions. Let me just check our crowd. Anybody here to make a public submission? I do not see any, and we do not have any joining by Zoom. Is that correct, Mr. Stiver?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, then I will not go and introduce how we're going to handle public submissions, because it would appear that that would be a waste of all of our time. I will then ask Mr. Stiver if we've received any written submissions.
We have not received any written submissions at this time.
Okay. All right. So that being the case, I think we're done here. Just one more check to see if there's any questions from council. No? Okay, in that case, then I will close the public hearing. And we'll move on to the consideration of this matter. So now we're moving on, oh, actually, we'll do minutes first, sorry. D1, does anybody have any errors or omissions that they've noticed with the minutes of August 19th? Okay, I will move that we approve the minutes of August 19th, 2025, regular meeting of council as circulated. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Now we'll move to consideration of this matter as G1. Yeah. I think that was honey. Honey. Yeah. We've already had the presentations on this matter, so there will not be any further presentations. So I will move right to making the motion. The council gives second reading to revised land use bylaw amendment 2025-27, Three Sisters Gateway District additional uses. And speaking in support of the motion, I see this very much akin to a housekeeping matter, but one that is needed to be passed by council. And so, I have no concerns with the additional uses being added. And I think the only thing I would add is that when I've heard from people around this particular development, everybody's looking forward to it. And looking forward to the services and amenities that will be provided there. And so if this will also help increase the services available or the options of those services, then I'm supportive of that. Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move that council give third reading to revised land use bylaw amendment 2025-27, Three Sisters Gateway District additional uses. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay. Before moving to new business, however, you're good? Okay. We will move to new business then. H1, FRIAA grant application, FireSmart projects. Ms. Miller, welcome to council. And
Thank you for
whenever
having
you're
me.
ready, the microphone is yours.
All right, I'm back with more FRIAA grant applications, this time for FireSmart projects. So wildfire is the top-rated hazard for the town of Canmore, and that's identified through the town's hazard identification and risk assessment process and the recent climate modeling completed as a part of the Climate Emergency Action Plan. The town has applied for and received various Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, or FRIAA, grants over the last years to increase Canmore's preparedness to the threat of wildfire. Notably, the town has completed several vegetation management and field modification projects, large-scale functional exercises, a FireSmart forum, a FireSmart municipal document review, and updates to wildfire preparedness plans and the creation of a wildfire mitigation strategy, all of which have been funded through FRIAA grants. FRIAA has opened their FireSmart funding opportunities in both the vegetation management and non-vegetation management categories. Applications are due at the end of the month and require a council resolution to be accepted. I'll be going over 4 applications that we are preparing to submit to FRIAA for your approval today, 1 in the vegetation management category and 3 in the non-vegetation management category. So first, in the vegetation management category, we have an application that will address the area in the Canyon Ridge neighborhood that requires maintenance on a previously treated area. This is a continuation of the project that we are starting this fall that we were not successful in receiving the full funding for. The project will consist of the thinning of understory evergreens, pruning of limbs on remaining trees, removal of dead and downed logs and dead standing trees, and the disposal by pile burning and chipping and removing. This is the proposed work area that we would like to submit the application for. Again, work was previously done in this area, so this will be a second pass and required maintenance work to maintain the resilience of the area. Work was last done in this area in 2008 and 2015, so it was 2 different projects in that area. The next project we would like to submit an application for will be a joint submission with the town of Banff for an interagency wildfire exercise. Similar to the exercise that we ran in 2022, we'd like to exercise a wildfire that's impacting the Bow Valley region and the towns of Banff, Canmore, and the MD of Bighorn. We would like to test our regional plans, municipal plans, mutual aid plans, and the implementation of recommendations from the exercise held in 2022. We'd like to have a tabletop exercise in the spring of 2026, followed by a full-scale exercise in the fall when wildfire risk generally goes back to moderate or low. The town of Banff is supported by the town of Canmore is supported by the town of Banff, Parks Canada, Banff Field Unit, the MD of Bighorn, Alberta Parks, and Alberta Forestry on this application. Another project we would like to submit for is the update to our wildfire mitigation strategy. The majority of the action items from the 2018 document are complete or in progress. It's necessary to keep this work current, to adjust to changing conditions, new information, new neighborhoods, and to continue our continuous improvement efforts in helping Canmore become more resilient to wildfire. This document will help guide and focus the work done across all departments with relation to wildfire resilience and is an important way to keep us on track with our wildfire mitigation efforts. The last project we would like to put forward for is a 2026 Community FireSmart Events program. This will support FireSmart events and outreach across the town of Canmore, MD of Bighorn, and the Kananaskis Improvement District. It will provide funding for the public information materials and other expenses related to increased public events and education sessions, and will allow us to get into schools, farmers markets, host forums, and other types of events. This project is supported by the MD of Bighorn and Kananaskis Improvement District as we continue to look for ways to collaborate and coordinate our wildfire mitigation efforts. If applications are supported by council today, the final numbers for each application will then be determined and submitted to FRIAA. If approved by FRIAA, administration will return with requests for new capital projects to be funded through the FRIAA grant funding. So I have listed several recommendations from administration, one by one, just to support each project.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And looking to council to see if there are questions on any of those recommended applications. I see none. Thank you very much. So now I'll go through these one by one. I move the council approve the submission of an expression of interest for the 2025 Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta grant for a vegetation management / fuel modification project. Anybody like to speak to that motion? Councillor Graham?
I think I'm going to speak to all of these, if that's okay. It's short. But just want to thank Ms. Miller for her continued incredible success in doing these projects and getting these grants. Well done. And giving credit where credit is due to the province for their partnership in funding these and helping mitigate this risk that we currently have. And thank you very much.
And yes, for the funding they've provided and hopefully for the funding that they will provide in response to these applications. Yes. Anyone else wishing to speak to the motion? And thank you for that, Councillor. No? Okay, I'll call the question on the first motion. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I'll now move the council approve the submission in response to the FireSmart request for proposal for the 2025 Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta grant for an interagency wildfire exercise. Anybody wishing to speak to the motion? Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. I move the council approve the submission in response to the FireSmart request for proposal for the 2025 Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta grant for a wildfire mitigation strategy update. Just in speaking in favor of this motion, once again, it shows the excellent work that's being done in that many or most of our 2018 items have now been achieved, and so time is right to go to the next level and plan out what's next. Looking to see if there is anyone else that wishes to speak to the motion. Seeing none, I call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And finally, I move that council approve the submission in response to the FireSmart request for proposal for the 2025 Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta grant for a 2026 Community FireSmart events program. Anyone wishing to speak to this motion? Councillor Ma?
Thank you, Worship. And I just want to say thanks to Ms. Miller and administration. When I look at these projects, they kind of run the whole gamut of various different strategies for wildfire. And I think that's really cool, from the sort of stuff where we're cutting stuff all the way to interagency, to mitigation strategy and events. So it's a broad approach, and I think the community appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And we will do item H2, and then we'll take a short break. So H2, 2025 Capital Project, CAP 7461, Regional FireSmart Coordinator. Ms. Miller, back to you.
Back to me. Well, you might have heard me say this before, but wildfire continues to be the top rated. I'm kidding, but not really. It is worth repeating to build that awareness, and that's part of FireSmart is building awareness in the community. So I try to say that as much as possible. So as it's the top rated hazard, there's shared understanding between municipalities and the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta, or FRIAA, that collaboration between communities is imperative in increasing resilience to wildfire. The municipalities in the Bow Valley have long-standing mutual aid agreements to respond to wildfires and disasters, and there's been recent participation on interagency mitigation projects like the Bow Valley Community Fire Guard and committees like the Bow Valley Interagency Wildfire Committee. The Regional FireSmart Coordinator is the next iteration of the collaboration between Bow Valley communities and has been approved and funded by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta. The application for this project was approved by Council back in June of this year, and this project also supports actions in the Climate Emergency Action Plan. To support FireSmart planning for the town of Canmore and the region, this project will provide the capacity to raise awareness, increase education and understanding, and engage residents through grassroots FireSmart education. Conducting one-on-one home assessments with homeowners has proven to be successful in engaging the homeowner regarding protection of their property as FireSmart begins at home, but a whole-of-community approach is required to more fulsomely reduce the wildfire risk in the Bow Valley. This project will continue to enhance these efforts to mitigate wildfire risk to the community. This plan, funded by FRIAA, is to support a regional community FireSmart coordinator position over a 2-year period that will serve the communities of Canmore, MD of Bighorn, including the hamlets of Harvey Heights, Axshaw, Deadman's Flats, and Lac des Arcs, and Kananaskis Improvement District, the Kananaskis Village, and other residential areas within the district. The scope of the proposed activities under the FRIAA FireSmart program focuses on wildfire mitigation, community education, emergency preparedness, and interagency collaboration across the Bow Valley. The project aims to strengthen local resilience by implementing FireSmart principles and projects in coordination with municipal governments, fire emergency services, and interest holders. Activities will include public outreach, wildfire hazard assessments, vegetation management, policy integration, and cross-training exercises to enhance community preparedness and response capabilities. So if any of that sounds familiar to the previous items, this is who's going to be leading a lot of this work. This position will play a crucial leadership role in reducing wildfire risk, fostering interagency cooperation, and advancing the long-term sustainability of wildfire preparedness efforts in the region. So some of the activities like community FireSmart education and engagement includes organizing and participating in community preparedness days, classroom school education opportunities, community training sessions, and helping develop and distribute educational materials. They'll come up with a FireSmart community preparedness plan, which includes wildfire mitigation strategies, conducting and updating neighborhood wildfire hazard and risk assessments that are a part of the neighborhood recognition program, reviewing and updating community wildfire preparedness guides, and the like. Emergency preparedness and response coordination, they'll be assisting with that interagency wildfire exercise, but also includes with updating response plans, planning and executing those exercises, and working to improve wildfire response capability across the jurisdictions. They'll be doing policy and development integration that includes supporting updates to legislation, bylaws, plans, policies, and development standards, chairing relevant internal FireSmart meetings, and collaborating with all interest holders to reduce wildfire risk. They'll be leading the vegetation management and fire risk reduction projects, which includes reviewing and updating those vegetation management plans and schedules and oversees vegetation management projects. And they will continue to focus on interagency collaboration and program leadership and establish and chair FireSmart committees and seek new opportunities for FireSmart grant opportunities. So this position is being put forward as a capital project due to the 2-year term of the funding and the project-based objectives expected as a part of the grant agreement. So the total grant amount received is $200,000, and it's expected to cover the cost of the position. The grant funding specifies that it must be used towards completing the activities previously discussed. Given that there are several activities that would require more funding, FRIAA shares the understanding with the town of Canmore that further grants be applied for to help support the activities performed by the FireSmart coordinator. Given the very different sizes of the municipalities that the Regional FireSmart Coordinator will be supporting, the town of Canmore is going to absorb the overhead costs as the majority of the work required is within our municipality. Any direct costs for work completed by the Regional FireSmart Coordinator in other communities will be covered by those communities or further grant funding. And there I have the recommendation for you that a new capital project for the Regional FireSmart Coordinator funded by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta and $200,000 be approved.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller. And Certainly appreciate this, once again, this funding being provided so that we can have this position. There's a lot of work to be done, and more hands on deck is certainly helpful. Looking to council to see if there are any questions. I don't see any. So thank you for that very full presentation then. I will then move that council approve a new 2025 capital project for the Regional FireSmart Coordinator funded by the Forest Resource Improvement Association of Alberta in the amount of $200,000. Anybody like to speak to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break and return at 1:40. To let me know when we're streaming again. Okay, we're back, and we're moving to item I1, wastewater treatment plant odor control phase 3. Mr. Camo, welcome to council, and whenever you're ready, the microphone is yours.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Mayor Krausert and council. Fortunately, we're back here again, still talking about odors. So we have an update to present to council and the community, and I'm doing this jointly with Bradley Young, who's sitting behind me here, who will be doing the second half of the presentation. So as we go through, certainly ask any questions, and there'll be an opportunity at the end to do so as well. So first, wanted to just an overview of the presentation, talk about the timelines, what's been happening to date, what kind of sparked things, what work we've done, and then Brad's going to speak to you about an overview of the plant. We think it would be very beneficial for council and the community at large to know a little bit more about the plant and the complexities that we're dealing with and trying to isolate and address the odor issues as they come up. And then we've done a phase 2, so we also have some details on potential phase 3 options that are being worked on right now so that they can be wrapped up and presented with council in the near future. So with that, the timelines, prior to 2021, we would get a odor complaint. I could count them on my hand. It was fairly infrequent. And at that point, for administration and council, it wasn't a concern. There are upsets that happen from time to time and nothing that would require any type of upgrade. But then starting in 2021, we started to see a significant surge in people having concerns, mostly around the wastewater treatment plant itself, various times throughout the day. And so at that point, they were reaching out to administration, they were reaching out to council, and you can see in 2022 that it became a priority for council to ensure that we started investing time and resources to do upgrades at the plant and to address those. So council approved in 2022 to do a study in 2023 to assess the odors. We went out with an external consultant who completed a report. Based on the findings of that report, administration began doing those phases. We did one in 2024 and another one we just finished this year. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So you can see the study itself, which was about $160,000, identified 3 key locations that they felt would be the primary largest concerns for odors. So the first one you can see is number 1, which is the start of the plant. So it's where all the wastewater from the entire system comes into the facility, into the headworks, and then from there it moves actually up, kind of like an L to the number 2 that you see at the top hand corner. That's kind of the flow direction that it goes. So they suggested that we address area number 1, the headworks. They felt that that was the area that required the most attention. Following that, they said, once you put that in place, put it in and then reassess. Did that address it? If not, move on to phase 2, which is the dewatering and solids handling. And their estimation that 62% of the odors were coming from the dewatering building, which is where we press the water out of the sludge. And then the final one that they said had about 10% of the odor emissions was the digesters, the open digesters themselves, which is number 3. So following their advice, council approved in 2024 the phase 1 upgrade, where we went in and added some salt dosing in the hydrogen peroxide dosing facility that we put at the front of the plant, and for about $410,000. And then we assessed. And what we found is it did address hydrogen sulfide by about 75%, but it didn't address the odors. And so then what do? We move on to phase 2. So we're in front of council progressing to phase 2, and then in 2025, we addressed the end of the wastewater treatment plant, where the dewatering and the solids handling infrastructure is. And so the idea was to make sure that the building was enclosed. So it works if the doors are closed, and we did a photoionization carbon air scrubber installation at where the air is captured and treated before it's allowed to be released. And that was about $1.3 million to do that work. And I even asked today, if you go at where the air exit is for that scrubber, you virtually smell nothing. Like it has actually solved the problem there, despite the initial assessment suggesting that 62% of the odors were coming out of this plant. But it's been in place for a number of months, and we are still getting odor complaints today. So though it did solve some of the problem, we still have a ways to go.
Mr. Kamal,
Yes.
just on the cost of the Phase 2 upgrade, I thought it was 2.2 million.
Yeah, this is what we have on record right now is what the costs were. We had originally a budget of 2.6 million that council approved, and we started, this was before we had any scope, and then we started to scope it out. So phase 1 was around $400,000. And so what we've done is we've kept the budget the same, but we've put meat on the scope, the details themselves.
Wasn't it 2.2 and we added 400,000 in order to bring it up to 2.6? Dr. Connell?
Well, one second.
Okay.
Just give us 1 second.
Okay.
It's not what's meant to date. Just phase 2.
All right, one more time on my button, sorry. So I believe you're also correct, Mayor Krauser, that we had the 400 and then added the 2.2, but Mr. Como's correct there. So the total is 2.6?
The total is 2.6.
What I heard your question to be is the 1.274 the total spent so far on phase 2? Is that what you were asking?
No, Mr. Como said in his presentation that the 1.2 that we see on the screen, or the almost 1.3, is the cost of the phase 2, but the report says it's 2.2 million. As I recall, the original capital project was 2.2 million, and then we added 400,000 once we had the costing to bring it up to 2.6.
I think that's correct. So but the 400 was for phase 1. So the 2.2 in the staff report refers to the cost of phase 2.
That's right.
For a 2.6 total.
Yeah, and so how does this fit with the 1.3 that is being the cost of the phase 2 upgrade?
And that's what we have. I wanted to be able to show council and the community what we've spent, like what we've actually spent to date. There may be some outstanding invoices. Certainly when we come forward with a phase 3, we can have a more thorough summary of the costs for each of the phases and then the ask for phase 3 cost.
Okay, so it is, just to be clear, it's anticipated that the cost for phase 2 was 2.2 million, and this is the amount spent to date.
Yes.
That
Okay.
was the question.
Yeah,
Yes.
great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the confusion, just wanting to be as transparent as we could. Yeah, but we'll provide more clarity when we wrap up the phase 3 project details. And so then, of course, we haven't addressed the odor issues, and it's been a problem all summer, and we've received a number of concerns. Mid-August, because the calls were such volume that we'd set up a portal on our website to collect data from residents. I do have some of those details that I can share, not necessarily as part of this presentation, but I do have a slide on it at the end if council does want to see some of the outcomes of that. But we have received about, it's been averaging about 30 reports a day. So, but there was a lot at the beginning, and it's largely tapered off, which is good. And so we've certainly heard from the community loud and clear that the concerns are there. We've heard where the concerns are. We've heard when the concerns are. And with that and direction from council, we are working very closely with SEMA Plus to develop a Phase 3 option for Council's future consideration. And so with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Bradley Young to present those details, and then I'll be back if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Welcome to council.
Thank you. Okay, so to start, I thought it would be helpful if we walk through the wastewater treatment plant here in Canmore. It's a relatively complicated wastewater treatment plant as compared to other municipalities. So just we'll kind of walk through the flow path. There's a solids train and a liquid train. So odors can be generated in your liquids or in your solids area of the wastewater treatment plant.
Mr. Young, just so that those watching know, which company are you with?
I'm with SEMA Plus.
SEMA Plus. Okay,
Yeah, that's
great. Thank you.
I don't think you can see my mouse up there. It's kind of laggy. I'll just describe it. So the wastewater comes in, it goes through the sewer network, pumping stations. Along the way, some of that material can degrade and it produces hydrogen sulfide. So that's a rotten egg smell. It's quite odorous. Almost all headworks buildings at wastewater treatment plants struggle with this sort of gas. So the first project that was done as Phase 1 was in that headworks area. So you can see the picture of someone from EPCOR taking a sample. Even when you were in that building, it just smelled as you would expect. So that first project took care of this issue. As you kind of walk through the flow, the next step in the process is a primary clarifier. So that's where the solids material goes into a large rectangular basin. The heavy solids settle towards the bottom, and then that solid material is pumped into those open air tanks that you see in the photos. The clear liquid on top is about 50% of the solids removed. It can have a slight musty odor, but it doesn't tend to have a strong pungent odor that you would have wafting into town with the wind. The odor study that was done by the other firm didn't identify that this was a place where odors were being generated. When it goes from the primary clarifier, it enters the BAF system. So that's a biologically aerated filter. Basically, what's neat about the BAFs that you have in Canmore is that all that dirty water enters the bottom. It's aerated, it filters up through a biofilm, goes through rocks, takes out the solids, and the only thing that's exposed to atmosphere is now treated water. So this technology here, after you get through that headworks facility, it's mostly treated water that's exposed. So the liquid side of the process is most unlikely to be generating these odorous compounds that you're having the community smell. So there's some confusion. Often people consider bioreactor health, biology health. Different vendors may consider ways to improve the biological process, but what you have here in Canmore, it isn't necessarily the case. It's a biofilm process. There's a sufficient amount of air, and that clean, non-odorous water is what's exposed to the atmosphere. The BAF does produce solids, so some of that, all that soluble material gets turned into particulates. It's microorganisms. Those are thickened, and then they combine with that raw sewage inside of those open air digester tanks. So in those open air digester tanks, which you can see in the picture there, you have that raw sludge. So all that raw material that came down the sewer, heavy in organics, easy to degrade. It's what's producing the smell if it degrades in the sewer network, is being combined with a very active, happy biomass that wants to eat and attack this material, and when it does that, it produces gas. So the intent of these tanks is that if we supply air, that gas should be mostly CO2. That's just the way that the bacteria work. The respiration will produce CO2. If there's not enough mixing, if there's not quite enough air, then you encounter these quite obnoxious smells. It's mix of methane, H2S, and it's if you lean over the tank, it's quite strong. Once you get through these holding tanks, so these are designed to be digesters, but really they're more of a holding for the centrifuge. The centrifuge is essentially like a washing machine. It's a drum that spins really fast, pulls the water out, and then you end up with we call it cake. It's not a nice cake like you would think, but yeah, it's like earth. And then that gets hauled away for composting. So the Phase 2 project was looking at what was that blended biomass and solid material that produces odors. So where it's being concentrated in that centrifuge building and then treating the odorous air there. So that was the purpose of that phase 2. Now that those two parts, so the most odorous part in the liquid train and the most odorous part, according to this study, of the solids train have been addressed, what's left is those digester tanks. As I mentioned, it's that really active biomass, really raw material, and it's the perfect scenario to produce odors, unfortunately. The intent, as I mentioned, is partial digestion. It reduces some volume. And really what they're doing here, they're a bit too small to be called aerobic digesters. If we were to make them aerobic digesters, you would need several more of these tanks and a lot more air based on the capacity of them. So really they're kind of a quasi holding tank, digester tank that is feeding that centrifuge system. So when we're looking at upgrade opportunities here, one is to add aeration and mixing. We'll talk a bit about each one of these. So we still have that perfect storm of raw material mixed with active biomass, but if we put enough air and there's enough mixing, the intent is that you would remove the conditions where it would produce a foul gas and try and lean it into producing more of a CO2 type of gas, which doesn't have those odors. Alternative 2 is to put a cover. So that would be basically covering those tanks. We'll talk about that. And option 3 would be going to a different technology. So rather than adding air, we do not add air at all. And then we produce methane and capture and use it for beneficial reuse. So the first option here with alternative for mixing, basically the intent here would be to drop mixers. So inside of those aeration tanks currently, or digester tanks, the diffusers have to be a bit above the bottom, just the way that they're constructed, and then it leads some propensity for maybe some solids material to settle. So it would be adding these mixers. It could be mixer aerators. We want more air, more of a homogeneous mix. The challenge here is that we're here in phase 3 now, so we're 3 summers or so into this, and there's no guarantee this will succeed. The fundamentals are still there to produce odor. You still have the 2 mixed materials that are primed to generate odor, and you still have an open tank. So although fundamentally doing this approach would help, it's not a guarantee for success. If operations, on occasions, they do have to turn the mixing and aeration off for operational reasons. It doesn't take long for those 2 materials to start producing foul odor. So it's not a guarantee that you won't receive complaints going forward. It would likely help, but there is still that trade-off risk. Alternative 2 is to go with a covered tank, so just keep what's currently in place. That's more of that, call it an equalization for the centrifuges. Aerate, so we still have that digestion, that partial aerobic digestion. Only now it's a cover for the tank. Similar to what was done in the dewatering building, there would be a mechanism, a technology to treat the odors, so we would now be capturing the odors that are currently coming into town when the wind blows this way. And we'd be treating it similar to how Andreas presented it for phase 2. And as he mentioned, that project is removing the odorous compounds out of that dewatering building. The tricky bit here at this site is that those tanks were not designed to be covered. They're open air, they weren't constructed to be covered. So structurally, to just put a cover on it, have penetrations to improve mixing, the tank isn't designed to do that. So there's a lot of additional structural works that has to occur for that to be a safe upgrade and for it to withstand the conditions. So we're currently also looking at going to a glass line tank. So basically a purpose-built tank. It would come with all the penetrations. It would be designed, constructed with all of these intent in mind, in that it will provide the mixing, the necessary aeration. It'll be built to capture the odors and treat the odors. So this is a way to basically eliminate the odors as they are going to the atmosphere. Anything that gets done in this type of environment here would be considering the future plant expansion. So what would be done in this tank here would have that in mind for the future project. So it's something that would likely need to be done in the future or would be beneficial to be done in the future. It would just be pulling that forward a bit and solving this issue at a similar time. The third option here is anaerobic digesters. So that's basically going to where we are Putting purpose-built tanks, again, you won't be able to cover these existing ones and convert them to anaerobic digesters. It's not a feasible way to use these tanks. So it would be new tanks. Again, no air in this case, so there's a bit of energy savings. It produces methane. That is then captured. It can be used as dual-fired boiler to make heat. It can be used to generate electricity. Downside here is that often you need a flare stack, so there's a flare for the excess gas. And also it's an extraordinarily expensive project, just preliminary numbers. This one's looking, I won't say specific numbers, but an anaerobic digestion complex is tens of millions type of project, which it makes it an eliminated option at that point for this project. And it's not necessarily required for your future plant expansion, so although it brings some benefits, it's not something that has to be done as in 5-10 year type of window. So currently we've kind of settled preliminarily, and we're here talking with yourselves here today, but to go with more of that covered tank approach. So we're doing a trade-off analysis to see if it's more economical to just cover those tanks that are existing and put the infrastructure in place, or if it's more economical to go with a purpose-built tank, a new asset. So the existing tanks are 30 years old, so it's upgrading your asset inventory. It's giving you a new tank to see where that trade-off balance lies. Once that's done, then it proceeds into design and tendering and construction. So you can see here what's on the image is just a 3D rendering of about the size that our BIM team was able to put together. So it shows the purpose-built tank with an odor control unit beside it, and that would essentially capture all the remaining odors, as far as we are aware, at the facility that are likely to be coming into town, and eliminate it at source right there. So that is the update from kind of the technical side of it. So we'll field any questions, and Andreas is
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Young. That's very, very informative, and I appreciate you running through the options. With that option 2, the preferred option, do you have a sense of how long it would take? Could whether it's a retrofit or a new tank, is this something that could be in place next summer?
We're considering scheduling. Unlikely to be start of summer. Kind of a midsummer would be a reasonable timeline to have something in place. Okay. So from an odor season perspective, the odors are also in these type of environments. Temperature plays a role. Warmer temperatures, higher chance. So kind of the beginning of the next odor season, we'll call it. But then it would be in place during the July, August.
So it is that sort of timing is possible. Because I was wondering if it was to take too long, would you consider doing the mixing aeration option as an interim until it's built type thing? Or can any form of that be done until the tanks are ready, or?
The challenge with those type of approach, unfortunately, a lot of these equipments do have lead times.
Do you have what, sorry?
Lead times.
Lead times, yeah.
So manufacturing and production and delivery. So to get something in place right now, we can't get away from those manufacturing constraints. Some are more readily available than others, but when we're talking a blower, these more specialized mixers, it is a classified area, so you have to go with the explosion-proof electrical equipment. We can't get away from those timelines.
Right. Okay.
So it's not that much quicker than a new tank. It would certainly get you probably to spring.
Okay.
But we're talking a couple months.
When would, in order to hit a timeline of these tanks being dealt with, either retrofit or new, by sometime next odor season, when would approval need to be received in order to get going in that, to meet that timeline?
When would, sorry?
Approval by council of a capital project, when would that need to be received in order to meet that timeline?
Yeah, I think the question is if the decision is not until later in the year, November, December, it just delays. Whereas if a decision is made sooner, so it's really just understanding the time from when the decision's made to the time it can be commissioned, if we have a rough number of months that would take. And then you can kind of play with it forward.
I guess from an implementation standpoint, when do you need to get started in order to get it done? According,
Well,
next summer.
I'll defer most of the answer to Brad, but I do know that, especially in light of council's direction, they are working and spending significant hours in assessing the direction to go.
Yeah.
So there's still that work that needs to be done. So it's not like a decision could be made today that it wouldn't be informed enough. So I think there's still some work to be done. There's also some assessments on when the project can be staged, depending if we're going to retrofit our existing. Maybe we do one instead of both initially. So those kinds of analysis are being discussed right now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and then from a expediting standpoint, I'll just use the glass line tank as an example. There's different procurement methods that can speed things up. So if you go with say pre-selection, or you can start your vendor working while design is still ongoing, you can reduce lead time. So there's various ways to deliver the project. It would be always as soon as possible is better, but
Yeah.
like if it's a November type of timeline for a design, then that would be.
So I guess I'm just going to put out there, and opening it up to any member of council that thinks otherwise. But I'm certainly open to having this considered at the earliest opportunity, and I would not want our budget process to be a bottleneck for it in order that would cause us to lose a season. And so, I think that's, and I'm seeing general nods. So this, while we anticipated this being with the regular budget process, I guess what I'm saying is, I for one would be open to a different timeline. Just as we've done in the past, if there was something that needed to be approved, we've pulled it out and reviewed it, and then it was part of the overall budget later, but we don't want to hold up procurement, or like once we know what we're doing, we don't want to just be waiting on council for that approval. Okay, Ms. Smithers.
Yeah, so what I'm taking from your comments is this doesn't have to be packaged up with the budget. When it's ready as a capital project for approval, we'll bring it forward. And then we can also work with Mr. Comeau to make sure that when the upgraded rates and the rate bylaw come forward at the end of the year, we can incorporate an option that would reflect this project as well.
Yeah.
Because there's two pieces to that, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Faubert, you have a question.
Yes, thank you so much for your presentation through the chair. I am of a similar mind in the sense that moving forward is important, but understanding that there is a process that also has to be followed. And I thought it is possible we could expand the scope of the capital project we already have approved that hasn't spent the full amount. If we, in terms of if something needed to be done sooner and there wasn't a new capital project yet ready for us to come for approval, that's an option. I'm also really appreciative of the fact that consideration for the new wastewater treatment plant in the future, to align what we have to do here with this project, with the future needs, to me is really important. And then my question is around what are we measuring? Because we did an Odour study and we did some measurements there, but are we still measuring odors, or are we just measuring complaints? What data are we collecting and keeping to assess whether or not we are achieving odor reductions if these things can be measured?
Yeah, fair question. And there are no guidelines in the province around odors. There are for H2S, which was important at the beginning, phase one. And so it is, and odors are subjective, which makes it further complicated. So we just, engage experts in wastewater treatment where typically odors would be generated, and we do our best to, encapsulate that area, address the odors before they're released. The ultimate goal is to have odors not go beyond the fence line. That's kind of what we've talked about. Now we've talked about that as a deliverable for design for the new wastewater treatment plant, as then it's successful, right? So that's what the engineers are designing towards. So now we have this existing facility. So we're trying to capture, and there's a high degree of confidence, much more so I would say than for phase one initially, that the digesters is a significant source. And the reason I say that is, if you recall earlier in the presentation, that they had attributed, I believe, 10%. That was a different firm than SEMA Plus. And when that was initially identified and presented to council, other people felt that that wasn't necessarily adequate or appropriate. They felt, including EPCOR themselves, going, I don't know if we agree with that. We actually think it is the digesters. But we had nothing else. They were the expert. We didn't know any better at the time, despite hearing some of these noise on the peripheral. We've done phase 1 and 2, clearly haven't solved the problem. Phase 3, we can't give any degree of certainty, but we are much more confident in that one than the other two. But that's the degree of confidence we can give, if that helps.
100%. And then I don't know if it's something that's considered in the future of the plant around just how we assess if we're, or even if that's necessary. If we're successful, if we're successful in addressing this issue, we don't even need to measure it. I just like to understand how we measure things. And so I am going to.
Well, Councillor Faber, I would add one other is, and I think I got a note from Ms. Woods, our water resource engineer, I think it was today or Friday, that we've ordered a number of sensors to be placed at the fence line so that we just have a little bit more information to see how things are succeeding and things are less subjective.
And I think this work is really iterative in the sense that as the more work we do, the more we understand the issues at play. And I have toured the plant, so I understand. It's going to be hard to pinpoint where things are coming from. And I just want to say this is really excellent work, and I'm really confident that we are heading in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'm going to continue up on Councillor Faubert's question. Should we be shooting for zero smell? Is no smell at all? Is that what the community should ever expect?
No.
No. Yeah, no. That's what I thought.
Yeah, everyone's poop stinks. No.
Yeah. So there should be there will always be some odors from this thing in the future, no matter what we do.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the intent is to limit how much so that it doesn't go beyond the fence line. That's the goal of success. But if people are walking down in that area, they'll likely smell it in the future. But the idea is where people are living and recreating, that they're not smelling it.
So when you float past the river, will you smell it? I consider that recreation.
Yeah, and there is a fence line in between,
Yeah.
and the goal is to not have it there.
Okay. And I know you touched on this in your report, but only briefly in your presentation. Why, since 2021, has this been an increased thing? We're told it's not a capacity thing. We're not pooping too much. Even though people think that, when the tourists come on the weekends is when they're smelling it on a Monday, but it's not a capacity issue.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Yeah, so there's different areas at play. So the loading to the plant is increasing.
Mm-hmm.
So the flows at the wastewater plant aren't increasing as fast as the loads are currently. I don't have graphics to show you, but basically what that means is that the biological system is required to treat more, and that produces more of that biomass that is consuming the solids. And then the additional load from the primary clarifiers is also increasing. So you're getting more material in those digester tanks, which requires more air, more mixing, all of those things to try and reduce the odorous material and go to more of a less odorous gas. So it's not a capacity constraint in the sense that your tanks are overfilling. It's a capacity constraint that there's more load going in them. The mixing's having a bit harder time to keep up, and then with the aeration, it's likely causing a bit more odors there. And then seasonally plays into it too. If it's warmer, if the wind blows the wrong way. I know this year the wind was a different direction, more prevalent, so more coming into town. Those sort of factors that are outside of anybody's control also contribute.
And one last one, if I might. And so EPCO runs this plant for us. And you mentioned earlier that they had disagreements about the studies earlier. And so I guess is there comments from EPCO on our current situation other than what you've provided?
No, there wouldn't be anything formally. This is from the operations team. You know, they're very familiar and intimate with the plant, and so from, you know, also appreciating they spend a lot of time at the plant, and they smell differently than you and I. But based on their experience and their familiarity with the plant, they felt the digesters was the larger source. Not to diminish that the other ones don't have, right? Like the dewatering is, when those doors are open, it's pretty smelly. But, you know, a few weeks ago, we had done an interview up near the wastewater treatment plant. The doors were closed, the phase 2 was fully operational, and we couldn't smell anything.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Ma.
Thank you, Your Worship. The existing digesters we have, you mentioned they're 30 years old. What's the typical service life for that piece of infrastructure?
Concrete tanks are typically designed for 50 to 70, depending. We'd have to look more at these in the specific case, but that's kind of a good general ballpark for these infrastructure assets.
And maybe this is a question for you, Mr. Camo. When did the complaints really start ramping up this past 2025? Was it April, May, like?
Yeah. I would, of this year?
Yeah, just because see, like every year it gets.
Yeah, it's when people started spending more time outside. So when the weather gets warmer, April, we started to see lots of calls coming in. I know a number were shared with Mayor and the rest of council, but that's when we started to see the increase.
Okay. It seems like we also rely a lot on wind in the past. That's been kind of like the wind's just blowing a certain way, and we've just been the beneficiary of that wind direction. Why can't we just go to big fans and just keep blowing it that way? Well, we're getting expensive now. I'm just curious. Yeah.
Sorry, what's the question?
Yeah, like, can't we just blow it down the other way? Like, how much do fans cost? Instead of capping it or making another like tank or da.
Yeah, I don't think we're assessing that as a
Okay.
phase 3 option, but you know, to build on Brad's comment, like historically the winds have always come from the west and
In our favor,
east,
yeah.
and we've got a weather sock on top of the headworks building, and when I was there last, it was heading towards the west. So the winds were heading in a different direction than what we have been used to, and largely based on where we had identified that the plant should go.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Merrill.
Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered. I imagine that the whole system is just like a human body. What you take in depends on how fast it moves through the digestion system. Is that sort of what we're looking at? It's the same sort of process that some things take longer to go through, or it's just the whole process? If you understand the question.
I think so. A human body is a great analogy for how these wastewater plants work. Honestly, it is. Your body is a digester. It's the anaerobic kind that was the more expensive last option.
Yeah.
There's no air in the belly, but yes, it depending on what material is in there, it's more readily degradable or it's slow and hard to degrade. You are correct.
Okay, so there's nothing you can do to before it goes into the system?
To help out, like to
Because-
try and, those, there are technologies that do hydrolyze, or there's big words for it, but basically it almost liquefies material. Those tend to precede the anaerobic digesters to produce more gas, and are also highly expensive and specialized.
Okay,
And
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and I too have been through the plant a couple times, and I know I've been there when you're there, you can obviously smell it, but not like I smell now sometimes. I used to live down on 2nd Street and way back in the day, and you could get big whiffs of it, so I know it'll never be 100% gone. And I just want to thank you for all your work in trying to help us solve this problem, so thank you.
Councillor Hillstead.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Super interesting. Would it be safe to say that now, on the operation side, like for the staff there, that it's a better experience now? Like, does the plant, working in the plant, is it better now with all these new changes because now it's less smelly?
Yeah, I would say probably the best example, Councillor Histad, is the introduction of phase 1, because we hadn't done the investigation and there wasn't a monitor in there for H2S, we had no idea how high it was at times. And so through this investigation, we found that it was higher than OH&S allows at times. And so the introduction of that phase has eliminated significantly so that we are now in compliance. So for the operators, that's been one benefit.
And then, yeah, just anecdotally, like I can remember driving along the Parkway and it smelled sometimes. And now it's, like you said, like a lot of people, maybe they don't believe that the winds have changed, but they clearly have, because, you know, every once in a while when I'm taking my kids to the bus, I get a whiff, but it's not every day. It's pretty sporadic and random. It's not a simple fix. So just again, like, thanks for all the work, and I get it that it's a lot trickier than people sometimes think. Sometimes people think it's just going to be such an easy fix, but when you have a system like this and you have multiple areas that could be causing it, you just kind of have to keep knocking off one at a time until we get to the point where it works. So thanks for all the work that's been gone into this.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Looking to see if there are any other questions. Councillor Mero.
I just have a random question that was asked by a community member. Could this odor be coming from somewhere else other than a treatment plant? Or is it definitely confined to that area?
Yeah, I've not heard that question. Like right now, I think people know what a wastewater treatment plant smells like. So, and there aren't that many, thankfully, in the valley, right? So the MD doesn't have one. They send their material to us. The town of Banff has one. If I look at where the complaints are coming from and where the locations have been recorded, it is very clear that it is within a certain radius of the wastewater treatment plant. And mostly to the east and mostly to the north of the wastewater treatment plant, with a little bit across the river and some of it trickling down into Upper Three Sisters. But if we're not getting orders from there, so it doesn't suggest that it's coming from another location.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that.
Councillor Hillstead.
That just sparked something for me. Again, because EPCOR does, like, they check the pipes and make sure things aren't leaking. Is there any chance that one of our sewer lines has a rupture in it somewhere and things are collecting and then they pass through, and like, just has that been looked into at all? Like, because I'm assuming that EPCOR, when they're checking for leaks for our water lines and things to try to make sure that we're keeping as much water flowing as possible without having leaks, but do we do that for the sewer lines to make sure that something's not broken down somewhere and things just ponding and, again, potentially causing a smell that we think we're trying to treat at the treatment plant, but it's actually happens to be somewhere else that is underground or somewhere that we can't see? And has that ever been looked at?
Yeah, sewer lines are a lot easier to inspect than a water line. So we have actually inspected all of the older ones in the downtown core, and started to move our way up the valley sides. You know, they have minor cracks, a few maybe a little bit of settling, but generally they're reasonable shape. not suggesting that there's a blockage or something that's gone anaerobic. When something like that does happen, it would surface it would come through through the manhole.
Yeah.
And we've not received from anyone suggesting that it's been something different than proximity to the plant.
And then, do low flush toilets play an issue into this? Because again, back in the day, we would have been flushing a lot more water, which would have carried a lot more waste through. And now that, you know, as technologies and things change, we use a lot more low flow toilets and things like that. And so you're using a lot less water nowadays to push things downstream. So, because that just over years of when anything new going in, it's probably low flush. So we're adding new things and now we're using less water to get it there. Like, can that also be causing an issue?
I would say, I don't think so, because the access and the availability of low flush have been around now, like 15, 20 plus years. So it's nothing new anymore. They're largely, I would suggest, in place, and the impacts of those have already happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can add to it. It's a good comment, because talking about the loadings to the plant, the flows don't tend, with the low flow appliances, increase as fast as the material that's going to those digester tanks. And that's what you see as a result of low flow. So it does impact it. It's just maybe not like in the sewers as suggested as much in this case, because there is also quite a bit of water coming down these sewers. Yeah, but it's a good comment for what is happening.
Councillor Frobert.
So then what about the fact that 20 to 30% of our homes aren't using their water and their wastewater as often as other homes? Does that impact how much flows through the system, and would that be a factor?
Well, the only part of the system that they wouldn't be, that they're not using, is from their home to the main. So that's the part that's impacted with them not. So upstream from the main, there are people still here, it's still flowing, and downstream. So that, I think, is would be the only concern of anything not moving, but it's really isolated to the services.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so thank you for all of your answers and for the presentation today, the update, very informative. As you can tell, there's great interest here, and I think we all want to solve this problem as soon as possible. And so please, let's keep it moving, and we don't need to wait for the budget time if we need a decision before that. Let's not make that be the bottleneck, all right? Thanks.
Understood, Mayor Councillor.
Yeah, thanks. Excellent. Okay, so now we will move on to items I2 through 4. Now, these are typically dealt with at a committee of the whole, and we replace that committee of the whole, which would normally happen today, with a special meeting of council. But we wanted to make sure that these updates were still received. So I'm just going to ask, just generally, with regards to, first of all, I2, councillor updates. Are there any questions for anyone on any of the material contained therein? Give you a moment to flip through your pages in case you've made a note. Councillor Graham?
I'd just like to see more pictures in the council updates. You know, every time there's somebody puts a photo in there, it just really captivates me.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
More pictures. I like pictures.
Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, so then moving on to the I3 administrative updates. I'd just like to say I really appreciated this update. It provided a lot of great material covering a lot of different projects and services, and I found it very helpful. I don't have any particular question because the update was so good. But I am opening it up to council. Any questions at all on anything within the administrative update? Seeing none, any issues or concerns or questions arising from the council resolution action list? Okay, seeing none, I then move that we adjourn this meeting. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone.